everyone. We're going to try and give you some fun and conversation. Patrick is the founder of the Next Web, as you know. He'll be talking about Index, their new data crunching business. And we're going to try and speak as transparently as the transparency that we demand from startups.
So my first question to you, why are you wearing sunglasses?
Because I had a long night. How about you?
Same thing, but maybe we should take them off.
Right, deal.
Okay.
And these are prescription sunglasses.
And it wasn't even alcohol, right? We
No.
were actually both separately working until 5 a.m.
Yeah.
I sent you a message, I think, at 4:45 or something.
And I replied, I think.
Yeah.
So we're quite sad and we're not rock stars at all. So tell me about Index.
Tell me about Index. So basically, who of you know the Next Web here? Raise your hands. Yeah. Okay. Cool. We have some readers in MENA. That's amazing. So basically, when we started Next Web, it was a long time ago. There was nothing going on in the online scene. So if there were 5 news items a day on technology, that was a lot.
In 2008.
Yeah, in 2008 we started thenextweb.org. We couldn't afford the .com. We bought it later.
Good man.
No, you have to ask for how much, and then I'll give you the transparent answer.
What was the figure, sir?
$1,000.
$1,000.
Yeah. Anyway, so there was really nothing going on. The online technology scene was like a small village. Right now, there's so many startups, and every day there are like 500 or maybe even 1,000 things going on in technology. And it's really hard to know what to write about. So
how many pitches a year?
We get about 50,000 pitches a year.
1,000 pitches a week?
Yeah.
Jesus.
So it's really hard to decide who to write about and what to do. So at one point I thought, okay, let's turn content into data so that we can make more data-driven decisions on who to write about. So we created something called index.co. It's a database. We track over 100K startups worldwide. And what we do is we turn publicly available content into data. So
and
if
you're based on the Next Web experience.
Yeah, we were working on indexing our own articles, and then we thought, okay, why not also index, for instance, your articles, or articles that are written by Mashable, TechCrunch, The Verge, or New York Times, etc. So what we do is basically track. We get all these articles in. We use natural language processing and machine learning to extract data from those articles. So if you write about fast tickets that raise 20 million, we see that article, we see, okay, this is an article about fast tickets, they raised 20 million, add that to their profile from XYZ investors.
It sounds familiar to something called Crunchbase. How does it differentiate from that?
Yeah, of course, so there's a lot of similar data. I think we have same type of data, although we are more focused on worldwide. Doesn't matter where startups are coming from. If you look at Crunchbase, it's an amazing source to get information about one certain company, but it's not a real product. Yeah. I think Index is, like you could go to Index and say, like, I want to keep track of all the startups in Dubai. And we will give you a daily feed of what's going on in Dubai.
Crunchbase is free. Is yours free?
Yeah.
It's free as well. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So it's more community-based and more chatty?
It is artificial intelligence plus community.
Okay, all right, okay. One of the themes of this discussion is the proliferation of startups. So 2008 there were 5 stories, there probably weren't that many startups. Now there are hundreds. Are there also hundreds of quite shit startups?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, of course, so when there were not so many startups, there were great ones that got a lot of coverage, and there were some, shitty ones.
And they would get great coverage because there was a small market.
Yeah.
You were saying earlier that when you were talking to Dig that existed, you could go straight to the founder and say,
yeah, you would send an email to Kevin@dig.com and say, like, hey Kevin, I love your product, I'm working on this, can you help me out with that? And he would answer within an hour. So it used to be a very small village. Now, there are literally hundreds of thousands of technology companies, and they're coming from anywhere, everywhere, which is, of course, great. But the amount of great startups, in absolute numbers, is 100-fold,
Yeah.
maybe more,
Yeah.
than compared to 2008. But
Okay.
if you look at the number of shitty startups, that also is.
Yeah. How would you notice one? I mean, we were talking earlier about getting your attention.
Yeah.
So I work for a number of publications, so I get an extraordinary amount of data that comes through my channels, and I destroy 98% of them because
How many pitches do you get a week?
probably about a fifth of yours. No, if you say you're getting 1,000 pitches, I probably get 700 or 800 emails. You know,
A
about
week?
Yeah, a week. Yeah. So yeah, not as much as you, obviously, because I'm just a small guy. But there are certain ways that they attract my attention, right? If the font is in the incorrect way, if it's too text heavy, if it's too presumptuous, if they don't give a shit about what I've written about, if it's anonymous.
So what is your ideal pitch then?
Ideal pitch is 3 paragraphs, plays up to my insecurities and says, "Dear Monty, you're a great writer. I read your piece in the Next Web last week. Great work. I'm an insecure person. I'm going to be positive towards that." And then the information in those 3 paragraphs tell me what it is, what they're trying to do, and shall we have a call? You know, and I may have a call with them, absolutely. How does it work for you with start? What do you think? Should a startup give you something?
So what I think in the end, if you really want to get out, and if you look at companies that are doing an IPO or are at the verge of IPO, they have to come up with numbers. They have to show growth. They have to show the numbers. And I think that if you're more transparent as a startup, if you can share what made you so successful, companies or writers like you and the Next Web are more likely to write about you.
Yeah.
So because there are so many, and I think there's a really interesting example of a company that does that really well. That they're so transparent that you can actually see in real time how much money they make. It's Buffer.
Buffer, yeah.
And that's, of course, that's
Superman.
Yeah, that's on this side of transparency. But I think you don't cut through the clutter if you just say like, hey, we're a cool app, we're the subscription-based cat food with a slice of Uber and Snapchat.
Yeah.
And based on that, you're not going to write about it.
No,
but if they say like, okay, we're this subscription-based cat food, you think it's not working. But in Malaysia, did you know that there are 5 times as many cats as humans? And
is that true?
yeah, I don't know. I'm making this up.
No, but it's the same type of thing for me. If I receive an email, I might miss something amazing because it's, hey, we're brilliant. We've just launched a campaign on Kickstarter. Write about us. No way would I ever do that.
No.
If it was, we launched on Kickstarter 3 months ago, we were oversubscribed or overfunded 450%. Absolutely, yes, there's a chance that I might write about it.
What I really, one of those Kickstarter examples, what I really am embezzled about is that some people, they go out and say like, hey Patrick, we just launched our Kickstarter campaign. And I'm just curious about things, so I then click on the link.
Yeah.
And what happens is that the Kickstarter campaign has 0 backers, not even the own founders. I'm like, okay, so you have 0 backers and you want me to tell the world to back you. I mean, that's not how it works, right? So
it's almost like not having a website or something like that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You mentioned Buffer. What about on the macro scale of things? What other companies do you think give and show and are transparent? Are we talking the likes of Uber, Snapchat again?
Yeah. Well, if you look at Uber, they often come up with stories that they tell you how many taxi rides they did or how many whatever. They still orchestrate what they are talking about, of course. But when you can show you have certain downloads in a certain country, that's something journalists are more likely to write about. But then so that's one thing, right? So to give more transparency. And I think with what we're trying to do with Index is also to capture that data, because over time it becomes a story in itself. So if you can show over time growth in employees, growth in how much money you raised, growth in traffic, and all that data captured alongside the team that you have. If you would go, look into that company and you would have that on one profile.
So Index in a way is it filters out those not so, I hate saying shit startups, that's not fair, but those not so good startups may even be found out via a platform like yours.
Yeah, we try to, we do it from the positive side.
So
we lift the companies that are doing well.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
And we ignore the ones that are not doing anything.
Yeah, okay. What about this audience and the MENA audience? What are you seeing? What do you think is happening here? Would you ever have a conference here?
A conference? They already have STEP.
This is
already. This is an amazing event. So why would we be here?
Good answer.
I think over the last 3 years, we're seeing a lot more startups coming out of this region, seeing more money going into this region, which are both a positive thing.
Yeah.
And also some companies that are just doing really well because the market here is also growing. I think you had a great example of a company in Jordan.
Yeah, there's a games company. Does anyone know a games company called Tamatem in Jordan? Hey, dude. I really like those guys. I think they're doing amazing things. So they're a games publisher that publishes games in Arabic, but also localizes, international games for the Arab market. But what they found was that in the app stores in Google and Apple, that there was hardly any native Arabic content, which to me is extraordinary. I don't know, it's the fourth biggest language in the world, and the West seems to be scared of the region. But that's the type of story that interests me. It's a data point of which you can form a story.
So their cost of acquisition was really low.
Yeah, so acquisition costs are almost zero. We were talking to a nice gentleman outside that's trying to set something up in London just now, and he was saying £1 or £2, and I think he meant £2 per user. I mean, that's an extraordinary amount of money, not only to acquire, but also more pertinently to retain.
Yeah, and so that's for £1 to £2 for a download and a user, right? Yeah. So that's what you see in the mobile market. But it's so take that example. So we were 10 minutes ago talking to a startup. They have an app. It's a pretty cool app. And you notice that I immediately ask, like, how many users do you have? What's the uptake? How much is your acquisition cost? Those are the same questions investors will ask you. And if you're not transparent about those numbers, you won't get the attention. Yeah. I know that there are some investors building their own data-driven tools to find trending companies. I'm actually seeing one sitting in this audience here that are creating their own system for it. And there are more. So if you want to get noticed by press, investors, peers, people who want to work for you, talent, I think the only choice you have is be honest and show what you got. Yeah, and it's not a question. It's not a choice anymore, really, is it? There are tools out there that can measure those type of things. Yeah. So for instance, so Index is doing that, right? So we track who's covering you automatically, if you have a profile or not, you can still claim your own profile, but we track it for you anyway. So we track if you got coverage in the New York Times or Tech in Asia, or you name any tech outlet, and we have it. We also track the number of employees that are that you have over time, funding, but also, for instance, traffic on your website. Okay. So that's all tracked, and we have journalists, investors that basically set up alerts, like send me from companies in MENA area an alert when a company meets this query.
Right,
like
okay, all right.
More than 10 people, less than 5 million in funding, and traffic goes up to whatever.
So we go back to 2008, and there's 5 news stories, you know, anything can get published, and now we have some would say overcrowded place. What do you think changed in 2008? Was it a confluence of things? Was it the iPhone? Was it money? What was it that turned that into that?
Yeah, well, a lot of things actually. So when I started in this scene was 2006, and you know I studied financial economics. So all my friends were going to work at Morgan Stanley or any other M&A bank, and I decided not to do that. Yeah, to go to do business online. But like really everybody, even including my parents, were like, "What the fuck are you doing? Why are you going into this business? You know, everybody knows internet is dead; it's not working." And it's like, well, you know, the stock market crashed while 4 years, 5 years ago. But if you look at the numbers, they are still actually doing really well. But the valuations of the companies that were on the stock market, those were insane. Because there was no real business model online, there were no payment methods, there was no the smart people were not online or not building companies, and I think in 2008, 2009, 2010, and what you see right now, everybody who did an MBA, they're not going to McKinsey anymore. They're not going to Morgan Stanley. They go to start their own companies.
I think you should be proud of what you've done with the Next Web, because you must have brought on a lot of companies, right? You know, you've done a great thing. You know, as much as similar.
Not all the companies remember.
Patrick Laive. Thank you very much.